Very good morning, dear future
Good morning.
researchers of the STEM fields.
Good morning, sir.
Good
Good
morning,
morning.
sir.
Body, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good
Glad
morning,
to
sir.
see you all. Good morning. Glad to see you all. I know that all of you are with lots of hopes for your future, as well as, we are here with lots of hopes for the future of this country. Because to speak the reality, by now, we being a country located in the global south, are actually far behind the research academia or the research industry or the knowledge industry. Being very far behind the other competitors with the other competitors, it's actually your duty, it's actually my duty and our duty, a collective duty, to make our presence available in the research, or rather in the whole big world of research and knowledge industry. And this course is actually setting the ground for you to be yourself comfortable to reach that length and be part of the bigger global world of research. So with that hope, let us begin what we are supposed to do today. First session, we are going to look at the foundations of scholarly writing and AI integration. Now you see that it's not going to be language alone. We are going to get the technology also involved. And as you all know, it's typical these days. Thinking, reading, writing, synthesizing, even critical decision making is now done on behalf of you by a generative AI model. Am I right or wrong?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
In such a context, ladies and gentlemen, if generative AI is gonna simply do lots of things on behalf of us, in this particular course, we are not going to deny you using it, but we are gonna help you use it to outsmart the generative AI capability with your own signature in it, so that you'll be creating your own agency as an author in research industry or other knowledge industry with your own skill, making the identity, while generative AI and all those tools making your partner. So that is the mandate of this course. What you can see here is actually the module objectives. Out of the whole big module, what you see in the front is just today's session's learning outcome, what we are supposed to do. I'm reading. By the end of this session, you'll be able to diagnose sloppy syntax in your drafts and apply specific algorithms to fix it. Now, you may be waiting until the last moment to write up your research, aren't you? That's how you do. You have the research, and the laboratory work goes on, your literature review goes on, you do this and that, and all 24/7 your lifetime is dominantly spent on research. But you did not begin, you did not yet begun, you haven't begun yet what? The writing, right? In today's agenda, we'll be looking at, in the very first half, we'll be looking at writing as a research methodology. You see research as one thing and writing as something detached from it, maybe something that comes towards a certain episode of your research. But let me say, it's not something making added burden to you. Writing is going to be part and parcel of the research methodology itself, right? And that will be the first part of our discussion. And in the second part, we'll be looking at the mechanics of clear and rigorous sentences. Now, you'll be dealing with language, text, sentences, paragraphs, essays, chapters, theses. So I was just, starting from the beginning to the bigger work that you're going to produce at the end of the day. All through this whole business of writing, there are mechanics. And all those mechanics actually apply in sentences, and we'll be looking at those clear, rigorous sentence mechanics as the second part of our today's lecture. Third, we'll be bringing all that knowledge into the real context. What is it? Using generative AI ethically. Let me repeat it. Using generative AI ethically as a partner. You might read the very word given within inverted commas in any way you like, but it means a partner. Now you have several partners. You have your supervisor, you have your fellows, you have your peers, and of course you have your reviewers, and you have here me, and you have your laboratory staff to help you. And in addition to that, they are going to be a really, really good helper, that is AI. So with all that team, we are going to achieve the outcome of the day. So let's move on to the core thesis. Can I hear from one of you? Are you clear what we are doing? Maybe with a thumbs up.
Yes. Yes. It is clear.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Perfect.
Clear.
So let's look at core thesis. You would see that communication and research as two separate things. Let me tell you at the very onset, communication and research are synonyms. Why do I call they synonym with each other? It's because you might be having a wonderful research which might change the entire world. But if you cannot put it right in the published world where it should be read, or rather, if you cannot rightly pitch your writing, or rather your finding in the bigger world where the researchers exist, your research is not going to be, not going to be used. Scientific discovery, therefore, gets value when your discovery is shared. And when you share it, sharing means communication. You are communicating it. Maybe starting with the 3MT, just 3-minute thesis presentation, maybe with just an abstract, maybe with a research feature, maybe with a journal article, maybe with a bigger keynote speech, or whatever, or rather a product launch. In every capacity, what you're going to do is quite simply communicating your research. Yes. So keeping in mind this, writing in this very detail, or rather in this very business, writing is not just about reporting data. Don't take writing as just reporting the data that you gathered from the lab and, filled in your catalogs. But what is it? What you're going to do is you found something, and the very new finding you got in your life, or rather in your laboratory, in your research, you are going to argue, validate your logic with facts and figures and data you gathered to a wider audience who are waiting to see what you have found. So it's not just reporting data. It's simply a process of validating your logic, where you prove to fellow, or perhaps, someone who are known to your field, you're going to prove that you have made a significant contribution. So that is the purpose of communication in research. Now you see that it's not even the two sides of the same coin, but it's going to be research itself is communication, right? Okay. If you cannot write your research with the correct paragraph, with the correct sentence, with the correct set of words, what happens? Maybe what you have found might not be correctly communicated to the audience, so that there can be flaws. If you want to make sure flawless communication, now if I can cite this clearly, it's Hurd, Stephen B. Hurd, who happened to add this very word, what we call crystal clear communication. In research, we need crystal clear communication. His synonyms, Stephen B. Hurd, synonyms, crystal clear communication with everyday term. You know what it is. It is telepathic communication. Now, you're the researcher. and your research is going to be met with fellow researchers, maybe your reviewers, maybe the producers of your product, maybe anyone of your or perhaps bigger knowledge possessor than you. So when you communicate your research to them, what you have to do, you have to ensure you precisely, crystal clearly communicate your message to the audience. And in this very thing, the telepathic is the term, which means what you are going to tell is exactly communicated to your reader, your audience, your receiver. Did you get the point? In this business, let me say, it's not only the vehicle, but also fuel, but also the driver. All that is going to be language. So what is our goal? In communication, our goal is move from your simple narrative of what I did. Don't just go and tell in your research paper, I did this in the lab and collected this data there, and this data speaks. Just keep in mind that what you're going to do is you're going to argue. Argue what? Argue for the very new thing that you found, the very new thing that you have to communicate with your audience. So language or communication in research is quite simply the process of argument, the logic of argument, the fluid of argument, or rather, how you convince your reader crystal clear telepathically what you have done as a significant contribution. If you have got the significance of communication in research, can I have a simple response with any emotion that you would love to share? I want interaction, that's why I'm asking. Can I see what emotions you have got to share with me? You don't have emojis? At least thumbs up? Thank you, Tilina. Does it mean that only Tilina has got the idea of the significance of communication in research? So how they are going to be synonym? Is it only Tilina who got it? Thank you, Srivardhana. Srivardhana, what's your first name?
I'm Minura.
Minura. Wow. I would love if you can come with your first names because, we don't like to call you with your father's name, right? We have to address you all with your name. Okay, great. So that indicates me that you got the point. Communication synonyms with research, how and why. So let's move on. You see, the right up myth. How many of you, just show me, indicating yes or no, or rather 0 or 1. How many of you think that writing of your research should come after doing all this? All this in the sense, all laboratory thing, all reading, all what we call data collection. How many of you think that writing happens after your manual laboratory work is done? If you say yes, you may send 1 for yes in your chat. If you say no, you may send 0. Quick. There's a second name, number 2 as well. Subhashini, what do you mean by sending number 2?
That means only the manuscript or thesis is not the final output.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking like that.
Okay, great. That explanation is great.
That means we need some product.
Yeah, great. So guys, it's clear, it's crystal clear. Writing is not something that happens after the research. The write-up myth is, you caught up in a trap. What is the trap? You believe that writing happens after the research is all done. But to be precise, to be correct, let me say, you have to go on a concurrent documentation, which means while you're reading, you have to write. While you're taking laboratory notes, maybe statistics, you have to keep on writing. It's because if you're going to write everything in the last minute, you know that your attention span is not so longer because we are human. Human error is inevitable. In a world where human error is inevitable, if you're going to write things in a later stage while, taking down notes and go on, you're going to write a lot in a shorter period of time with which you'll be missing a lot. That is obvious. So what you have to do is, without actually accumulating a cognitive gap by collecting lots of things to write later, the best thing is to give up the write-up myth or clear the write-up myth, say bye to write-up myth, and start writing it from the scratch from the very beginning. Right? So this is the first advice I have to give you. Leave aside the cognitive gap by, when you collect data and leave it to be written later, you are gathering a cognitive gap, and it will be layered one on the other. And it will be a huge mountain-like cognitive gap at the end of the day if you collect things. I'm telling this with first-hand experience. When I was doing my PhD, and I'm actually, I happen to keep things postponing until the critical moments and deadlines arise. So what happens? I've been accumulating a huge cognitive gap with which my actual writing potential does not surface. You know why? This huge cognitive gap hinders me writing naturally. So what happens? Don't get this cognitive gap accumulated. Clear the myth and see the vivid line that you have to start writing from the scratch, from the beginning. So when you have several drafts of one chapter, it does not mean that you are doing something wrong. It does not mean that you are a failure. It does not mean that you are exploited. It means that you are investing in your journey of writing, because the first draft could be, if you have to just reflect on the time that you spent or invested in your research, if you could one day look at your first draft and perhaps the final draft, if you see through the difference between the first draft and the final draft, you'll be amazed at, what a great journey that you have passed through. So remember, no one is born a writer or an academic writer or a research writer is not born with the talent of writing. It is by doing, drafting, revising, that a man makes himself a perfect writer. So when you are when you are doing your research experiment, while doing the experiment in one side, you can start writing methods, because then concurrently the experiment is planned in one end and you are actually partaking it. And in the meantime, you're writing your methods. You can fine-tune them eventually with your feedback you're getting from your supervisor, with your own feedback, because every day you deal with the experiment. And while you are generating the graphs, while you are creating the data set, you can start writing the result sheet, result section. So they are not two different ends where you should, you shouldn't wait until the experiment is done to write up the methods. You have to begin with starting, with the steps that you're doing in the laboratory, with the experiments that you're planning, with everything that goes concurrently in the laboratory or the field, you can start writing methods. Did you get the point? So keep your minds free from the write-up myth, and do not let huge cognitive gap to come and accumulate, because the gap might be widening. The bigger the gap, the lesser that you accurately report in your research. Did you get the point? I wish yes. So writing
Yes,
and
sir.
writing and research are not two different, milestones of the research. It's the same thing that concurrently happens here and there. So where the language input comes, when documenting concurrently, as I said earlier, when your documenting comes in, maybe there where you begin your first language in action. When you write things while you're doing your experiment in the lab, maybe that you use a detailed set of what we call actions that you happen to commit in the lab, or rather lots of things that are happening in the lab. But there you need a time in between what you have reported and what you have written as first draft. There can be a time lapse, and in that time lapse you can invest on looking at precise verbs to describe your actions. In scientific writing, in academic writing, generic verbs like did or looked at, or rather appeared and so on, the simple everyday terminology is not going to work because you are communicating telepathically. So that you have to use, because most of this writing is published in English in the English native countries. So that for them to be, your editor, your reviewer, your desk editor could be a native English. So what you have to do? What you have to do is you can take the rough notes in the laboratory as sketches, and then you can take time to invest on finding the action in right expression of the precise word. So these are simple everyday tasks that you have to do, unless you'll be messing the whole thing up. Just look at the phrase bank I'm giving here. Imagine that you're writing the methodology section. Methodological precision actually appears with the right, proper, precise verb that you're using. Look at the couple of words that are given. Half a dozen is given: investigate, evaluate, determine, demonstrate, illustrate, analyze. Now, I've taken these verbs from the academic word list, AWL. It's a well-known finding by Avril Coxhead from University of Tasmania, University of Auckland, who actually happened to research through millions of research papers and research theses, from which Avril Coxhead happens to find some dominating set of vocabulary or diction, or rather word list, which are going to be critical, precise verbs and words which are used in writing. So I'm giving you within inverted commas, search on the internet. If you are searching for verbs to describe your actions, go and search AWL, Academic Word List. AWL stands for Academic Word List. If you simply look for AWL on the internet, you will find 500 plus odd families of verbs which are dominantly appearing in academic writing. So if you take, 60 verbs sublist first, it is organized in separate sublist in the order of frequency it appears in academia. So first list gives the most frequent set of words. The second list, the second most frequent. Third list, the third most frequent. So there are 10 such lists. Each has 60 words. I'm inviting you to go into AWL to find what your precise verb set. You may start your glossary with AWL. Well, Have you guys got any question to ask on the things that we have discussed so far? They were just hints, not simply the big formula or big, what we call big, they are not big theories. Any big question to ask? Or any small question? Anything? Any questions, my dear friends? I'm waiting for your questions, if you have. I'm sorry, I did not try to undermine the way that one happens to pronounce question as question. It was, the vibe for the following couple of days. No problem. Can we move ahead? Are you sleeping?
Sir, I have one question.
Yes, go ahead.
Sir, for the academic words,
Yeah.
so the investigation, that verb can be used because investigation can't be quantified, no? So if when we are using this, is it okay?
Well, that's a precise and very, very significant question now. Investigate, investigation, investigatory, investigate in its verb form, yes, which communicates exploration systematically. If you refer to such a big longitudinal process of systematical observation, if you are denoting that action, you can use investigate. Did you get the point, Subhashini?
That means when if it is a broadly, if you are searching or something, we can use that one.
Broadly in the sense, yes. Now, Subhashini, the first thing is, don't just hang around the very verb investigate alone. Once you get to know the academic word list and its frequent words, you will see that in place of investigate, there are other sensitive, very precise verbs which are working in place of investigation based on the context you are referring to it, right? So let's move on to the next activity with which you see how this is going to be related. So I'm going to deal with you for 15 minutes for a simple task. What is it? Yeah, Dasun happened to share the academic word list link as well. You all can have a glimpse at it as well. Now we are going to see our zero draft. That's it. Can you read what is on screen? You are explaining your thesis to a dean who is not in your field. Imagine that now at the moment, the dean of the Faculty of Graduate Studies is from Mechanical Engineering Department, And imagine that you are coming from business sciences, okay? And you have your own thesis. You are going to explain your thesis to a mechanical engineering expert, but your field is business, right? Now, imagine this scenario. Look at the instructions. Complete these sentences using methodological verbs, which is given in the above. Investigate, evaluate, determine, demonstrate, illustrate, and analyze. If you want, you might, I'll be swapping between the two slides so that you'll be able to go there. Complete these sentences using the methodological verbs from the previous slide. Look at the 3 sentences that we are going to write. Or else you can invent your own sentences to put these verbs in place. Complete these sentences using mythological verbs from the previous slide, or else you may invent very creative. I know that you all are creative minds. You'll be able to invent new scenarios in your sentences. Okay, try and do these 3 sentences. The primary objective of this research is to yeah. You see, within those square brackets, the verb should come. And this is not a fill in the blanks exercise. Keep that in mind. What we are doing here is we are just giving you prompts, and we want you to use the precise verb and ensure that you clearly communicate what you want to tell. I wish you got the point. Take about 10-15 minutes to recraft these sentences with precise verbs from the previous slide. You may note down the words: investigate, evaluate, determine, demonstrate, illustrate, and analyze. And with those words, you are supposed to fill and synthesize your sentences. I think you guys are engaged in. And once you're done, you can send your sentences on.
So can you show the previous words again a bit? Okay, thank you.
Now it is clear. You can see both the verbs and the sentences in the same screen. Once you're done, don't wait, just send it through chat so that I'll be able to see, and it's now enabled for everyone to see your chat. Indula, yes, perfect. But I want you to complete the rest of the, ellipsis given, right? Don't just put 3 dots, the ellipsis. Just complete the sentence. Then it will be
Okay, sir.
much more beautiful.
Yeah.
And Rishma, this is not a fill in the blanks exercise, as I said. Please
Yes, sir.
ensure that
Got
you,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm sorry, sir. I'll complete the sentence.
okay. And Aslam also take the advice. Please go ahead with a complete sentence. We want it to be, bit more engaging from your end, not just gap filling. I'm sorry, I had to switch off the camera because the lighting condition is not good here. We have a power cut, but I'm connected, don't worry. Pavarasan, yes, good attempt. Vikramarati, good attempt. Prisma, this time you're perfect. The primary objective of this research is to investigate the use of digital technologies in the apparel industry. Investigate what? Yes, it's clear. Specifically, this study formulates the relationship between digital transformation and manufacturing efficiency. Perfect. Ultimately, this work aims to construct a model to evaluate digital transformation. Okay, great. That's all. How turbofan engines sensor signals can be used to predict component health and remaining useful life early enough to support metal. Wow, great. The study analyzes the relationship between component degradation indicators. Perfect. So you all are coming into Dharani, yes. Society 50. Perfect. I'm glad that you all are making an effort. Minura, thank you. It's a good attempt. Nilupul, thank you. They are great attempts. Aslam, thank you again. AWBM Pereira, Dinisha. Dilina. Wow. Right, right. So I wish all of you are making an attempt and posting it on the chat so that your time you invest here might put into a really, really good investment. Lots of Pereiras here. Oh, lucky to see another Ratnayaka. Vimeshi, Bhanuka Bandara, Prashila, Netkara. Some of you, your name suggests that you are Gen Zs. Is it the case of the majority, or is it just, a simple share of, I don't know. I don't know whether you like or not to claim yourself a Gen Z or baby boomer or whatever you call it. Sashini, right? Mahesh, please do not go into Mahesh. I'm sure I am known to you, Mahesh. Please do not go into this, fill in the gap thing. I want you to invest these verbs in an exact sentence which has something meaningful. Kusal, great attempt. Well, so what you have just begun is with your zero draft. We are just trying to, put right verb in the right place with right object and subject in the by sides. So as communicating crystal clear, the idea precisely from your mind to the reader's mind. So this is the business that we are supposed to do. Well, I'll give you 2 minutes for the others to try. And in the meantime, we'll be moving on to the slide as well. Once you're done, please pause them here. Since the meeting chat is recorded, I'll be able to have a glance and, simply see, do a bit of analysis because this is data for us, right? In your zero draft, Padma Peruma? Yes. Shall I tell you one thing? Now, this is simply what? A task that I want you guys to do, not AI to do. at least before you post something, simply taking from AI to the chat box, take it to at least a text, what we call word pad, so that text formats will be nullified and then you can get it back here, right? I think the best thing is you just try to put your pen and paper. Here you are not using pen and paper, but use your typos, use your fingers and type it and send. Don't always delegate your work to the generative AI, because it's not generative AI's ability that I'm testing, or rather I'm contesting it. It's just not a criticism, but I'm just, giving the message to all of you. Well, with that, let us move to the funnel strategy, how the structure of your writing, or rather your research, your report of research, your output of research comes in. We call it funnel strategy. I think funnel is something known to you all, Thank you, Hityarachi. I see your work as well. Yeah. In this funnel strategy, what happens, we start with a broader context. Broader context is to actually convince your reader the non-territory of the bigger field that you are going to do the new investigation, or rather new researching. And in that particular broader context, at the bigger space, you'll be actually convincing your reader why does this field is going to be a significant matter of investigation. And from that broader context, the whole thing will be narrowing into, now you know what the funnel looks like, right? A funnel looks like this. So this is the broader end, where we begin the broader context, simply showing them the non-territory, and then it is gradually narrowing. Narrowing, why? The narrowing comes to ensure that from the broader context, you are bringing the attention of the reader and your story into specific problem or limitation in the current research. So narrowing means to getting the attention from the audience, convincing them why this particular field matters, and then you are narrowing it down to be specific of your problem. Or particularly if you are doing a research, you should show your readership that it's due to a limitation of research in that particular field that you are going to make an attempt on it, right? And then the smallest point of the funnel is what we call the gap. There, where you say explicitly, you say what is missing. So you start with a very broader discussion of your field territory, and then you'll be narrowing it down to specify the problems and limitations, and based on, or rather on the very basis of the limitations in current research on that particular field, you'll be investigating on it. And in the gap location, the very specific, explicitly indicated place, there where the gap comes, in the gap you particularly state what gap you are going to fill, right? And then the funnel will be again made bigger down there, because now you'll be generalizing it to the bigger world. So you'll be putting your finding in a bigger picture. So this funnel strategy is not just a simple, what we call, I'll be having my breakfast while going on the lecture. You can do the same, right? From your end. No worries. So guys, what I want to tell you is quite simply, this very architecture of funnel is what you have in your mind as a blueprint, because when your writing up goes on to your reader, if the reader is given explicitly the gap first and then move into the territory and all that, maybe the reader might be messing it up. So you have to appeal to the audience, telling that in this territory this happens, and then you'll be narrowing down your story to specify where your research is located, and at the very explicit point you'll be stating very precisely the gap of research that you are going to fill with your research. So this is not simply a theory, but just a hint, or rather blueprint, for you all to understand how the writing and the plot two coincides. Now, your plot should be placed in such a strategic funnel strategy, then it is easy for us to communicate. Now, I'll be once again articulating the same word, crystal clear telepathic communication. Now, you have it in your own mind, but in research communication, what you're doing is what is in your own mind is convinced to a fellow, maybe someone else, right? So in that very thing, the easiest way could be, and it's the non-easiest way, the genre features, most of the researchers do this, that is using the funnel strategy. Have you guys got any question from the funnel strategy? Thank you for those who have posted in the meantime. Great. So yeah, zero draft is submitted via chat. Naomi, just a little comment. If you just happen to do this by yourself, great. But I sense that it is not you who did it. But it's okay. If you have done it, that's great. When these simple exercises come in, my dear guys, make sure that you make a real, authentic attempt of yourself without delegating that to be performed by generative AI. Any questions from the funnel strategy? Or rather, can someone paraphrase or rather tell me back, what did you understand by the very idea of funnel strategy?
Normally when we start research,
Mhm.
I hope, am I audible, sir?
Yes, Mamoda. Yes, you are audible.
No. So normally when we start a research, there's a bigger background, big idea is there.
Yes.
And then inside that there are different challenges are there.
Yeah.
So if we identify one particular challenge out of all the things inside that big idea, then we can come up with narrow down, means we are coming up in order to find the solutions for that particular challenge. Then we are narrow down our research. And then we identify the bridging the gap. That's what we are doing for the research. So then in order to identify the challenge means we are finding out the gap, and then finding the solution means bridging the gap. And then what we are doing is the contribution.
Perfect.
So that's what I understood by the funnel strategy.
Perfect. Now, funnel strategy, the first half of the funnel is this: broader context, narrowing, and then the gap. And as Pamoda has indicated, the upside down funnel comes therein after, which is, making your contribution and putting your contribution in the bigger picture once again, right? So it's the funnel strategy. You start with it in the right shape, right direction of the funnel. And then once you pass the research gap, and once you do your research with a particular method, and when you get to bring your results and all that, that actually is within the very narrowed context, and then your results, your discussion, and of course your contribution simply bring it back to a broader context, making it upside down towards the bottom of your research paper. Well, that's a very good understanding you had. Anyone else who would love to contribute? Maybe in another word? Because people communicate in different ways. I think, it's your voice that matters most. I would love to welcome someone else's interpretation on this funnel strategy. Thank you, Pamoda, for opening the platform. Can I hear from a gentleman, please?
So this is something like this. When we are starting our research, we have the lot of problems, and we know what we are doing, but there are various, right? Various solutions available. Therefore, by doing the literature reviews and all, we can come to the what is our requirement like. What we can do, and come to the narrowing down, and do the specific take one of these one specifically, and giving the solution to that. With that, we can contribute our work to the world, I think.
You're right, Aslam. That's precisely the idea. Now, it could be the literature review, it could be the big picture of the whole research paper, maybe the thesis, whatever it is. Any piece of research writing should use, or rather not should use, typically uses the funnel strategy, where the funnel actually, if you take a cross section of a funnel, you see the narrowed area, and there is the broad area, the narrowing gap, and all that. This typical architecture is simply how your plot of the story should be. Thank you for the contribution of Aslam and Pramoda, and let's move on to the narrowed funnel point. Okay. Now, in your story, when you are communicating with your audience, keep in mind that you cannot employ suspense and thrilling, or rather, it shouldn't be something like a horror movie. It shouldn't be something like a suspicious plot fiction. In your research, you have to clearly communicate what you have in your mind to your reader's mind. In this very exercise, giving signals on what you're going to tell next, indicate next, from where to where you are taking your reader's mind is very significant. In justifying your research, you should be able to use signaling words. Earlier, we talked about the precise verb usage, and now we are simply looking at how signal words could indicate your writing, could make your writing rich expression. Signaling words actually gives your reader an idea what might come next. And when you convince your reader that you are indicating your pathway from where to where, that's actually part and parcel of the very idea of crystal clear communication. You know why? Without beating around the bush, or rather without doing hide and seek with your reader, you should be directly communicating with signaling to what comes next in your write-up. Actually, that creates the mandate for your work, because you have something in your mind and you are directing your thoughts into your story, which is your research write-up. And with that, you are guiding your reader from a broader area to narrow, signaling what comes next. Look at these statements. here are certain gap statements. When you indicate research gap, right? There are certain signal words coming in. However, few studies have investigated. Now, when you say few studies have investigated, you're signaling your reader that there is a particular area on which there is a what? Gap of what? Research. There is a little gap of empirical research happen on that particular area. So how you indicate it? You look at the word however, few studies. So you explore your research in your literature review, telling this researcher has done this and the other has done that and so on. And you signal your reader with a note like however few studies have investigated, which is a clear indication to your reader that you are narrowing this to the very area where there are less research exists, so that you are bringing your reader's attention to the area where less research is taking place. You see the several strategies used by in the examples. Although exists well understood, why remains unclear. Previous research has failed to address limitations in current methodologies prevent. Now you see, all through this phrase bank, what you're seeing is quite simply how you can signal your gap, how you can indicate your researcher, your reader, the gap you are going to indicate, or rather you are going to fill. I told you I'm not teaching you how to do literature review or how to do your research, but we are simply guiding you as to how you can simply narrate your story in a convincing way with your own signature or rather branding or rather identity to convince your reader with crystal clear telepathic communicative track. Well, there is a message coming in. Yes. Let me read it. Some of you are still posting. Good. There was a question. Somebody happened to ask or something. Okay, Vikram Maharaji. Okay. You attend your work, yes. No worries. Recordings will be available, don't worry. Take care. Yes. Now you see the next conundrum, the next big problem. What is it? You write and there is a gatekeeper. Who is that? There is a reviewer, right? Now you should be able to pass through the reviewer's selection desk. If you can pass through that, then only you get the chance to publish your article. I'm sure that you are aware of this publication process because you must have already published a lot, or rather you start publishing. Why do we worry? Why do we talk, or rather why do we urge so much about this clarity and signaling and precise verb and all that? It is to ensure the clarity of your sound thinking, which is communicated to your reader. Now, this very thing is very significant because in the reviewer's desk, the reviewer might be, without looking at your whole paper, without looking at your profile, without looking at anything, because it's blind peer review. That is what happens in this industry. Your sloppy writing might be indicating the reviewer an idea or clue of your sloppy science. So, for example, if you do not use the correct syntax, your reviewer might assume that you are careless with your pipetting and coding. Your laboratory experiment, your coding experiment could also be indicative of the way you are writing, right? That is the case. The way you write, if it is very clear, it gives a clue for the reviewer. This guy must be doing a very precise, careful work in the laboratory. Maybe he is making a first judgment on a face judgment where your coding are also very good and very precise. So this first impression is very significant. That's why we were urging on this matter of clarity. Precise verb selection, signaling words, and the right choice of words from academic word list are very significant because they are together with the syntax where your idea is clearly indicated. They give a first impression to your reviewer how well you are. You give them a first picture of yourself. Yes, your clear writing, your crystal clear syntax, and your clear selection of word and terminology, and of course verbs and your signal words all indicate how well you are doing your write up, and that is reflective of how well you have done your research in the lab or maybe in the coding lab. Did you get the point?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for the response, and we'll move on. Now, when it comes to the desk rejection or maybe the reviewer, now, the first point is at the reviewer's desk, you should be among the ones whose articles then sent to the reviewer, right? So at the desk reviewer's point, or rather gate, you should be able to simply show them the package. Package in the sense, if you're just showing them the product, that alone cannot do. You should show them the whole package, the literature and the gap and your method, what you have done, what is your finding, and how it's going to be related to the bigger world of knowledge. All the entire package should be rightly positioned, right? And in this positioning and pitching, there are three things which are actually helpful. Look at them. Ambiguity. What is ambiguity? I'm sure you know. Ambiguity is where the crystal clear communication link is not really connected. The reader, when he finds, if the reader cannot replicate or rather understand your mental model now, it is the story that is in your own mind. And your story, which is in your mind, should be communicated to your reader. If your mind and the reader's mind do not replicate, which is we called crystal clear or telepathic communication, if it is not there, ambiguity surfaces. With ambiguity, there is a high chance that your paper will be rejected. And the second thing is, particularly this comes in sentences. If you use sentences which do not flow linearly in the sense they have to be sequentially, linearly connected, then only the reader finds it nicely flowing. The third aspect is lack of novelty. Now, you might have had a great gap identified, but if you have written it in a poor gap statement, that could be slipping from your reader's attention. Why? If you do not clearly signal that you are coming into the gap, and if you do not properly and very strongly indicate the gap statement, maybe your reader is going to miss your point. At that point, maybe your paper could be rejected. Right? So in this whole process of getting your research published, writing is a core. And keeping in mind that there isn't a single writer who is born to be a writer. Writing is a skill that you can master over time by doing it. That's why I was talking from the very beginning. I was urging you from the very beginning. Start writing from the very point you start. Right? It's not a mission that you have to accomplish after completing the research. It is concurrent. While you're doing the research, start writing. And while writing, do moderations and, pass it to a friend for them to read. And if your friends, your peers see that there are flaws, there are, areas where you need to improve, get those insights. And nowadays you have the support of generative AI and all that, where you can get the support like a professor's support. Well, I wish what I have cleared so far is nothing but where you can make use language as a very clear weapon to simply show how skillful you are in projecting your research to your reviewer and to the one who chooses your research for publication. I think there where the challenge lies and there where we have to target at. Well, before we are moving to the cognitive load theory in writing, let me give you 1 minute to ask for any clarification on the things that we have discussed so far. Friends, it's over to you.
So I
First,
have a question.
yes, Idula.
Yeah. So maybe this is like a tangential question to what you discussed. So when we write, you said there are word lists like academic word list. So that keeps recurring in the research papers in the publication. So if we do not use the common words that are commonly occurring, would there be a chance, when we have published the paper, that it might not get indexed in search engines, like in the higher rankings, because the words that might be, because we will be using things like Google Scholar always, right? So if we do not use that kind of words, is there a chance that the publication, even if it happens, will not be indexed in the search engines?
True. What Indula is raising as a fact is actually a real concern. Now, there is research in one end where frequent academic word is listed. So that is a way of helping you how to get your work done in the very crystal clear way. That's one end. Then the other thing is, now you see all these research databases and everything are working on, as you all know, text. And they are simply the coding. And in this very business of generative AI and all that, they actually trigger, or rather they actually catalog things by using key terms, terminology and all that. Therefore, these texts actually do matter. What Indula has raised is quite right. When you use frequently used and of course often resonating words and verbs and academic word list items, there is a high chance that your research could be indexed. Indexed in the sense could be found by those databases and filters as, resonating as a, what we call, we will get fluidity to get into those baskets. That's one thing. The second thing is maybe that you are trying to not to use the frequently used verbs, which might create another disconnect. What disconnect? Maybe your reader is a first language user of English, but you are trying creativity from an ESL background, English as a second language background. So maybe the guess that you're making as a creative input might lead your idea not properly communicated. In that case also, there can be a disconnect between your thought, which is read by a native what we call a native reviewer, which is not read properly, so that the idea get lost. So yes, Indula, true, if you are to use frequently use key terminologies, and particularly if it comes to academic word list, true, it is a research evidence thing finding, most of the highly cited articles predictably use that set of verbs as their key terminology in particularly key verbs were there, so that you are highly likely to be considered in the world where all these algorithms are written. Your terminology will be easily detected by algorithms as frequently using, so that there is a high chance of you getting indexed or rather filtered into index corners. Indula, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for bringing that matter into the discussion, because that's why we advise you all from our end to use those, like generative AI, like ChatGPT and all those products, or Gemini or Notebook or whatever. Use these strategies like, academic word list as part of your writing toolkit, so that you'll be rightly pitching your idea to your reviewer, to your journal editor, to the algorithms where journals are using to filter and pick up your manuscript for publication. I would love to welcome more questions. What about our interesting ladies who are, the emerging now? Even STEM field is going to be dominated by ladies. What is your curious mind is asking? Can I entertain a question from you guys, girls? Does it mean that there aren't further questions? Okay, no worries. While the discussion goes on, you can still pop up and ask any question you have. Well, let's look at what is this cognitive load theory. Perfect. What is this cognitive load theory in writing? Now, when you're writing your research, yes, you were working on research, you are thorough about the literature, and you are with your data, and you are the one who simply articulate your story. So you know the whole story, but keep in mind that you're communicating it with someone who is not known to the work you have done in a level equivalent to you. Your level of understanding on the subject might be greater, might be your reader is not simply of the same understanding as you in the subject. So, in which the cognitive load matters. In each sentence, in each paragraph, in each segment, section, episode, or chapter, you have to keep in mind this cognitive load theory. What is it? Your reader has a limited amount of working memory. Now you are dealing with your thorough memory of the whole story, but you are contacting the reader's working memory. He uses that very limited working memory to grasp what you say, right? Imagine that if your reader is going to spend 90% of his or her energy trying to understand your sentence structure and your verb and your diction and your way of writing, so what happens? Only 10% of his energy is left to understand your science, or rather your message. Therefore, you have to make sure that you put very less cognitive load on your reader to understand ideas that you communicate through each sentence. I wish you got the point. Cognitive load theory is all about, yes, you as the author of your own research, you know all about it. But your reader is dealing with his working memory, which is short lasting and short in amount, little in amount. And with that little memory, your reader cannot grasp big ideas at a stretch. And maybe if the writer has to struggle through your sentence structure to understand what is happening, then there is very little chance for you to communicate your idea. Did you get the point? We can go into an example on this. Someone was trying to tell something. Is it to confirm that you understood or what?
Actually, sir, I would like to ask something.
Yeah.
Sometimes some says when it comes to this research paper, especially science-based research papers, they say like some baravachana hard words. If you use something like hard words, then there's a more chance to get published that one. But in my mind, I think if you cannot understand the words, then you need even dictionary to understand. Some of the hard words are there. So which is the valid, what is the valid point? Is it good to use some, yeah, I hope you understood the question.
Yeah. The බරවචන කතාව ගැන මම කියන්න කැමතියි. The සමහර අයගේ that's that is an invalid argument. You know, it's අපි කියන්නේ සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ හිතලු කියලා. That's just a thought simply arising out of the bed, right? When you wake up, you know, there are certain thoughts coming into your mind. So this happens, you know, දැන් අපි ලියන්නේ වෙන භාෂාවකින් හිතලා ඉංග්‍රීසියට කන්වර්ට් කරලා අපි කියනවා ESL background, English as a second language user. එතකොට we think certain words are බරවචන, right? But they could be perhaps abandoned words in the real native language. Maybe they are very rarely using them because they do not care those words. Perhaps we are the one who cares about it. Say, for example, if I say something like, you know, this is the quintessence of the whole story. If I say quintessence, thinking that it is a baravachane from my end, the reader must be looking at quintessence. Okay, quintessence, the central idea. Oh, quintessence, the central idea, running metaphor. So, quintessence අපිට බරවචනයක් වුණාට සමහර විට පටහිර ලෝකෙට එහෙම නැත්නම් native speaker ගේ ලෝකෙට quintessence essential වචනයක්. දැන් ඔය බරවචන සහ essential වචන කියන දෙක පටල ගන්න එපා. Do not mess with what is so called the very standard words and what is the frequently used word. Forget about all that. The very valid point is quite simply use the precise word. Precise word in the sense වැල්වටාරක් නැතුව, without beating around the bush, without, you know, using this and that. You can directly say an idea with a precise verb in a precise simple sentence. Use that. And that is what I stated at the very beginning. All this is about telepathy. Telepathy means you have an idea in your mind, and before you tell, your reader comes to know it. This telepathic transmission of the idea is made possible not with Bharavachana, but actually with the precise selection of words. That's why we were opting you to use what? Academic word list and maybe the terminology in your particular area, right? So, did I answer, Pamoda, your question?
Yes, sir. Great. Thank you.
Any questions further? In about 10-15 minutes, I'll be inviting you to mark the attendance on Google. So keep, not Google, on Moodle. Let's move on to the activity. So we are moving to
Excuse
part
me,
2.
sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is not regarding the content that we learned.
Yeah,
This is
Dharani.
regarding the modal access, sir. I
Okay.
do not have modal access, even though getting to the modal and searching for the course, it is only visible the courses so far done up to 2024, sir. The new course is not there for me to get enrolled.
Well, Dharani, I'll be enrolling you. You just drop a message indicating your what we call email with which you
Sure, sir.
registered for the thing. I'll try my best from my end to enroll you in the new page.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Right. And Dharani, don't
All
worry
right.
now. We are taking attendance in 2 ways. The first thing is, we can
Okay.
see on screen who were there, and
Yes, sir.
we are giving that what we call attendance marking on Moodle to ensure that it is recorded. Unless I have to
Sure.
feed this attendance back to the LMS. That's why.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you, sir.
So the first part is done, my dear friends. First half of the discussion today, and we are now transitioning to mechanics. Mechanics of clarity, how to establish clarity. Before that, I would love to answer any nonsense, not the questions really related to the things we have discussed so far. Have you got any nonsense to share here? It seems there is something coming on chat. What is that nonsense? All right. It's not a nonsense. It's Dharani's email. Okay, Dharani. Thank you.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah.
Sir, before the ChatGPT time, the research papers we need to return in the passive voice. Now some reputed, even though the index journals also, they are writing, we are investigated, like that kind of form. So is it correct?
Now, Subhashini and
They are
everyone.
using we are, that kind of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to research writing, yes, there is no one way or rather fixed exact way of writing it. Now, writing differs from journal to journal, from database to database. Yes, there are instances and there are places where certain journals prefer first person narration, which means, the author, the writer of the whole what you call the writer of the whole research narrates the whole story, telling that I did this, we found this, and so on. And that is preferred in certain journals, but it might not be the case of other. Therefore, that's why we are teaching you all. Now, there isn't one correct way. It depends on which particular publication agent, which particular journal, which particular genre you are going to publish in. So maybe you have a story that you will have to write in two different narratives. Say, for example, if a particular journal asks for first person narration, you have to rewrite your story in first person to fit into their journal. But the general case is, in academic and scientific writing, we particularly use two techniques. The first thing is we actually keep the objectivity of writing, which means, we keep aside our identity away from our writing. So we don't say we did it and so on. We let it data and facts speak instead of we are telling that we did it. Right? Say, for example, data suggests, other than saying my data says, other than saying I found this and so on. That is not the norm. The norm is we make it objectively expressed. That's one thing. And you were referring to passive voice. Yeah, active and passive voice is, subjectivity and objectivity. True. You can't clearly define before ChatGPT or early ChatGPT that passive voice is regarded. Actually, it depends on the journal that you are targeting at. It depends on the writing genre. Say, for example, University of Moratuwa. When you're submitting to University of Moratuwa postgraduate studies faculty, you have to follow their demand of the styles. Their demanding style or genre could be different from perhaps APA citation method. Now, APA is American Psychologists Association, which is a highly cited way of doing papers. But in University of Moratuwa at FGS, we recognize IEEE, which is because we are more into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields. In those fields, the highly cited and frequently used articles and journals prefer IEEE citation. So there are different styles and genres preferred by different journals. So based on the journal, you have to adapt yourself. What is your writing style? That is my answer for that. And do you have anything further on it, or rather, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you, Subhashini. And what about the others? This is the nonsense time. No questions? No question?
So when we are learning that research methodology, when we are writing the proposal, they have said write in the form which can understand by the layman itself. If
Yes.
I use these particular words, then it is hard to understand, right? It is not the simple English. And then what about that one?
Well, that's again a very valid question. Now, you have to distinguish between what writing you are following. Now, there are two varieties of writing in science. First thing is scientific writing. Scientific writing is all about when you're writing it to journals, when you're writing it to what we call databases like, Scopus and all those indexed databases and journals, you have to use scientific writing. And of course, when you're submitting a proposal to a particular, say, for example, when you're writing a proposal to a postgraduate program, they have their technical features and you have to accommodate them therein. That simply is, the audience, and when you are writing to a particular audience, you can go with the audience's level of knowledge. Say, for example, if you're writing to your professor, if you're writing to a journal, that journal is particularly referred by the people who are interested in that field, not by laymen. So if you're writing to a journal, yes, you have to write in the journal's terminology. On the other hand, say for example, if you're choosing a journal which is written for general crowd in the sense, say for example, you are marketing your product to a general crowd. So what happens? So you should be able to make it appealing to the crowd or rather layman. For that, you have to dilute your terminology and make it much more understandable for the layman. That sort of writing is called science writing because we are bringing science to layman. In that case, we have to dilute the terminology and make it much more visible in our writing. In scientific writing, we have to stick to the terminology because then only the people find it easy and the clear communication is established. So those two genres need to be distinguished by you. So you should detect whether you are doing a science writing or scientific writing. Science writing is to bring science to layman. Scientific writing is to bring your scientific idea to a scientifically acknowledged society. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions? Let me share the Moodle page. Where all this is. Let us go for what? Attendance taking. Are you all ready? You have to open a tab with the Moodle page. Those who have, those who do not have, don't worry. Right? There are messages coming in. Let me see. Right, don't worry. Those who have not access to the Moodle page, we'll try to establish it there soon. Until then, those who are in Moodle page, I'm sure I'm sharing the screen. Yes. Do you see? So attendance, there where you have to click, and I'm going to make it available now. In 1 minute's time, I'll be making the attendance taking enabled there where you have to mark your attendance. And attendance is now on. You can mark the attendance. Today there is a password. The password is clarity, CLARITY, all caps. In capitals, you have to use the password clarity, CLARITY. Let me type it on chat. You can now mark your attendance. You got the password. Are you guys marking your attendance?
So I marked the attendance.
All right, perfect. Okay, guys, I think time is enough for you to mark the attendance. Let us move on to the clarity aspect.
Excuse me, sir. I cannot enroll to the module.
Well, shall we
It
take?
says
I am Mahesh. Yeah.
Mahesh, yes.
Yeah, Mahesh Sabenak, I tried to enter into the Moodle, however, couldn't enter into the Moodle.
Okay, dear Mahesh, we'll do it this way now. After this session, yes, you can simply speak to
Yes.
Izuru, the coordinator
Yeah.
from FGS, and indicate
Yes,
who are
I
not
know.
enrolled in, so that he'll be adding you all. From my end, it is possible if you can just drop me an email or rather text message with your email address, I'll be able to enroll
Yeah.
from my end as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
okay. Then.
Well, shall we move to the transition? Mechanics, the mechanics of clarity. Are you guys ready? Shall we go ahead? If you're done with your attendance, we can go ahead. Hello, please confirm me whether we can go ahead.
Yes, sir. We can go.
Right, perfect. How can you establish clarity? Now, you have something to say, what we call the what, and mechanics is all about how we say it. So it is, we have discussed what we have to say, and now we are looking at how we are going to say it. So let's look at the mechanics of clarity. Now, clarity is all about, as I told earlier, it's about the telepathic crystal clear communication. Now look at the very thing that we took a little bit earlier is coming into the slides, not by mistake, not by accident. We were planning it, but you were taking it into the discussion. I'm sure it was Subhashini or someone. Great that you were talking about big words. Yeah, big words are coming in now, like big question, right? Now, one of the key and salient aspects of research reading and research writing is you should write it for someone to read and understand. Now, readability is established through clarity. Look what I stated here on top. Good academic writing is not about using big words. It's not about big words. It's about precision. Precision in the sense, without going around, as I said, without simply giving vague words, without data, rather than telling fast, you can say the speed, 45, you can figure out the speed and say how fast it's moving. So precision is part of the readability. And the second thing is logic. Logic in the sense, as you know, one sentence stands for one particular thought, and thought should be connected from one to the other. So your idea should be logically connected from one sentence to the other. This smooth flow is a must if you are trying to make your writing readable. And the third thing is conciseness. Conciseness means you're going to use the minimum number of words with a maximum signal. You know, short and sweet, the very simple formula. So you have to use minimum number of words, so the cognitive load that we pull on the reader is less, but within the little number of words, we are going to communicate the maximum weight of signal to them. So these are the three pillars of readability. Number one, precision. You should be using precise, right terminology and verbs. That is it. Together with the data informed, you know, your idea should not be simply words just giving vague ideas. It should be precisely given data supported ideas put in precise terms. And second thing is ideas connected together and logically. And the third aspect is, you know, you're going to tell a big story with little number of words. Let's look at how this could be done. You know, academic writing is not as smooth or rather clear as you think. It is really dense, right? When you're writing to the academic publishing platforms, you should simply provide them a word diet. What do you call a word diet? A set of words. You know, your write-up is all about your word selection. Your write-up is all about your syntax selection. Your write-up is all about your plot selection. Plot in the sense how you organize it. Now, word diet actually indicates who are you and what your story is. Look at the given bloated statement and concise statement that will explain you the whole story. Now, if you go on telling in spite of the fact that, now you see how many words that you're going to waste there. You can concisely say although. It is interesting to note that, oh my God, this is not simply a speech contest. This is a write-up significantly. Has the capability to. Why do you waste so much of words to say that it can? So dead wood is what we call unnecessary words. Now, if you are giving them a diet, you know what diet means. In dieting, what we are doing is we are simply taking away the unnecessary high density carbs. Instead, we are going to use fiber and lipids and the rest. The same way, when you are writing, your write-up should go with precise, necessary, simplest, shortest collection of words. We call it concise word. Did you get the point? I think it's not a big deal. It's a simple thing. We are coming to a task, bit of an editing task. Now they are given an original sentence. It's a well-known. Now do not try to simply paste this into generative AI and bring me an output, right? Try it by yourself, because I am not testing ChatGPT or any other generative AI's ability to do this. I'm testing yours, right? Okay. Reduce word count by 30% without losing its meaning. Look, the original sentence. It is well-known fact that the implementation of the new policy has the capability to produce a significant improvement in the overall workflow. There are 26 words. So if you are to reduce it by 30%, you have to come into somewhere below 20, right? So what you are supposed to do, rewrite the sentence using the concise alternatives from the previous slide. You don't need to revisit the previous slide. You can find it by yourself because you know you are a vocabulary, you are a dictionary by yourself. Try to reduce the word count by 30%. Once you're done, send it on chat. I'll be giving you 5 minutes for this. In the meantime, I'll be just sitting up from here for 2 minutes. And if you have any message, just put it on chat. Perfect. I see lots of responses are coming in. Wow. Great. We call this paramedic method, which means, quite simply, we are reducing two things. First thing is, we are reducing the cognitive load for the reader. That's number one. Number two, we are ensuring what aspect? We are ensuring that our writing is going to be really concise. Okay. Thank you for partaking in the task, and those who are trying further, continue. What is the cardinal rule of writing anything? Maybe research, maybe science writing, maybe scientific writing, anything that you write. What is the cardinal rule? Quite simple. Now, if you're going to show up how talented, how skillful, how linguistically competent you are in your writing, I'm sure that you are not writing a research paper, but you are writing just a show up profile. I think for that, maybe a blog might work. Maybe your personal resume might work for that. But if you are writing for academic publication, keep in mind that when you put complex ideas, those complex ideas need to be expressed in simple sentences. Why? When the ideas are really complex, it needs a cognitive load for the reader to understand. But if you're at the same time putting heavyweight words, and if you're making your sentences complex as well, so the idea is going to be what? Twice difficult. The rule is this: a sentence should convey exactly one idea alone. This is the simplest rule. One idea in one sentence. The error usually surfaces when you mess between different segments. Say, for example, when you look at the paragraphing or section breakdown, there is a section for methods, there is a section for results, conclusion, and so on. Right? Section break is to make the same effect, but within sections, keep in mind, exact one idea is placed in one sentence so that the ideas are going to be really, really clear. Right? Don't try to combine methods with results and results with conclusions and connect all those things and place it here and there. Use relevant segments and sections of your write-up to talk about that particular idea and move on to the next. That's it. And optimal length, you might be wondering how we prescribe all this. It's not out of our own mind. Actually, these are research findings. Optimal length of a sentence is preferred to be between 15 to 25 words maximum, right? Sentences over 40 words are in the danger zone. You know why? They are danger in many aspects. First thing, they might be complicating the idea further because you are communicating a complex idea. Maybe the complex idea could be further complicated with, when you write sentences of the danger zone length. So these are the cardinal rules of your write-up. And then the word order. I think this is nothing that I should explain, but always use the subject, verb, object order. Subject is to say who, verb is to what happens or what is done. And the rule is this: keep the subject verb as close as together. If you put the subject here in one place, and after about dozen of words, if you're going to bring the verb in, remember that your reader might forget what the hell the subject is, so that the idea will not be communicated properly. Look at this exercise, syntax repair. Look at the problem sentence. The protein, which was isolated using a novel extraction buffer containing high salt concentrations to maintain stability, precipitated. Now you see where the subject and where the verb. Subject is protein, and there is a long description about protein, and then after all there comes the verb. What happens? To say the distance between subject and the verb is exactly 16 words. By the time he reads the verb, reader might have forgotten the subject. So rewrite this as two separate sentences to fix the gaps. Now you have to put this whole idea in two sentences and fix the gap. Take 2 minutes and do it. I'm getting answers. Perfect. So what you're supposed to do is to split this whole idea into two sentences and make the subject and verb as close as possible, making it readable and comprehensive for the reader, easy for the reader to grasp. Well, so with that, I think keeping this as a task that you are engaged in, let me move to the next, because we are running out of time. Yes. I told you now establishing clarity is all about how to do it. Now, these are little tricks that we put your idea clearly, right? Now, let's look at non-new contract. What is it? How to establish your logical flow. How can we link sentences smoothly? Now, I told about one sentence, one idea. Now, sentences are cohesively linked together in paragraphs, right? So this is the typical easy to use and mostly used flow of lining up sentences. What is it? We start a paragraph with a topic position. So we start at the topic position, we start a sentence starting with the known context. So the bigger known information is brought into the beginning of the sentence. Then, now we come through the sentences and we reach the end point or the stress position where, we start with known and then known to unknown. New information comes on top of the known. So we bring the known facts first, and then little by little, we bring the attention of the reader to the new information. And there we create the emphasis. So context comes first by giving known information, and then we add the emphasis with new information coming in. So the chain is this: the new information at the end of sentence A should become the known information at the sentence of B. Now, remember, first sentence tells some information. Once the reader is done with reading the first sentence, it becomes a known fact. Then the new fact comes in. And the new fact and the old facts is always renewing in a cycle. Why? When he reads it, it becomes known. And once known, then you are bringing the information. So what is the chain? The new information at the end of sentence A should become the known information at the start of the sentence B. Second sentence begins with that known fact. Did you get the point? We can check whether you have got it with a simple task, but yeah, let me ask from you whether you got this point.
So which is like abbreviations we use.
Yes.
Before using that, we are introducing that what is that, and after that we are using that abbreviation.
Yes, yes. That is an instance of doing it. We put, that is another strategy that we use in writing, but what you're telling is quite right. Yes, we first give the fullest form and then the identified abbreviated letters in capital, and then within brackets we indicate the abbreviation and go ahead. So that makes, the first unknown, then known, then with the abbreviations we can go ahead. Yes, that's an example of it. Yes. Well, let's move, because we are running out of time, because we had a bit of a panic at the beginning, but don't worry. Now, when you go ahead with the sequence of known facts and then unknown facts, the known facts becomes unknown fact becomes known, and we create that cycle. But if we are to move away from that idea, remember that in your write-up, you have to signal that transition. How do you signal that? This is how it is done. If you want to add something, you can go for furthermore, moreover, in addition, right? If you want to contrast something, I don't need to tell these things. The very idea is quite simple. What is it? Unknown fact, and then introduce the unknown fact. By the next sentence, the unknown becomes known. Now you create a loop of providing information. from known to unknown and so on. But still, going beyond that, you need to indicate you are moving away. Maybe you are adding something further. And for that, you have to indicate transition signals. These are simply the writing strategies that you use in your write-up. Let's do it in a task, right? This is an editing task. Read it and take 2 minutes and do it. Problem text is this: volcanic eruptions release massive amounts of ash. Global air travel is often disrupted by this ash. Significant economic loss are the result of these disruptions. Identify the new info at the end of sentence 1. Identify where it appears in sentence 2. Review one paragraph of your own thesis. Rewrite it to ensure the end of sentence A links to the sentence start of sentence B. You see? Here, you are supposed to edit this problem text with the little strategy that we've discussed so far. Please try it. I'm waiting for your edited sentences. Indula, perfect. You have made a wonderful impact to the problem text. Now it's read clear. Dasun, you also have done a good work. Well, wonderful and very creative attempts. Great, great. Yeah. Now you will realize that what we are doing here is not simply what we call revisiting again research and revisiting again literature reviews and methods and all that. How to do those things in the very genre applied to your discipline is already taught to you and you are practicing it. What we are giving you is simply the language which sharpens your research work. So let's look at the next point, avoiding weak language. Now remember, sometimes if you have wonderful findings, if your findings are quite good enough for a whole world to look at, but still if you do not state in real language, which is appealing to the reader, maybe your great findings might hide behind your vague language. For that, there are certain strategies that we can make use. Now, you must have heard the very word nominalization, which means, you can turn a verb into a noun. You look at the example, we made a decision to investigate. Made a decision, we have converted that into a what? One decision. What is it? We decided to investigate, or rather made a decision to investigate. We decided to investigate. So we quite simple. And of course, this nominalization, turning verb into a noun and vice versa, can be used effectively when you're using language strategies. You can search on these things, or rather you can make a negotiation with your generative AI on practicing nominalizing strategy, so that Gen AI will give you exercises for you to deal with, and it will be suggesting you evidences and of course, feedback. We are inviting you to use those techniques in AI to make your writing perfect. Now, sometimes අපි දැන් කතා කරද්දී අර උග්‍රපාදන වගේ කියන්නේ ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම වගේ දේවල් කියන්නේ. The same comes in writing as well, right? Say for example, it's a known fact that, universally known as a fact is that. So you use such terminology. Don't, go on clearing throat, because you are not clearing throat. The writing is clear, just state the fact, right? So that's how you can avoid the weak language. And let's move on to what the next point is. How to maintain coherence. Coherence means your reader has never got a chance to ask, why are you telling me this now? Say, for example, now when it comes to reading instances, when you are coming to speaking instances, sometimes you tell something and then you go on explaining it further, I mean, and so on. When and why it happens? It's because in your first instance, you could not tell it precisely in a way that the others can understand. So you have to go on telling, I mean, and so on. The same way, if you do not write something clearly, the reader will have to ask back, what were you telling? Right? So look at the anchor. Keep the grammatical subject consistent in a paragraph. Now, there can be several subjects in a, there can't be several subjects in a sentence. Grammatically, there can be one subject. And that grammatical subject has to be consistent in a paragraph. Now, paragraph is all about one thematic idea discussed in several sentences. Each sentence must add new information, not just repeat the previous one in fancy words. Say, for example, අපි මලගෙවල්ල කතාවල දැකලා තියෙනවානේ ගුණපාල උපාසක මහත්මයා හරි කීකරු කෙනෙක්. ගුණපාල උපාසක මහත්මයාගේ පවුල. So we go on telling Gunapala Upasaka Mahatma for several times. So what happens? So the whole logic is going to be just wordy and ugly and no one wants to listen. So remember, each sentence must add new information. And when you are adding the next sentence to the same paragraph, repeat the previous, in an antecedent, maybe with a pronoun and so on. You advance from what you stated earlier. That is how you should maintain coherence. And with that, we are coming to the third part. Actually, the third part is going to be conducted on the coming Thursday, and it will be done by my co-lecturer, co-teacher of this module, Ms. Ashwini Karunaratna. She will be taking the AI partnership in this whole business. That part actually is going to be kept for the Thursday discussion. So we have had a very lengthy, bit interrupted at the beginning, discussion so far. How do you feel about what we were doing today? And do you feel like they are going to make an effect in your writing journey of the research? I want to hear from you in your own genuine words how you felt it today, because that will help me fine-tune myself, fine-tune the content, and making it much, much more appealing and helpful for you. It's over to you, ladies and gentlemen, to comment how you felt it, what you wanted, what you got, and simply what compliment or criticism you have got to tell from what we discussed today.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. It was like very insightful. When I've actually enrolled to the course, I was thinking it's just going to be like a language course. But after this introductory session, it gave me a lot of insight into what we'll be doing, and I find it very useful. I actually learned a lot of things that I didn't really know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Risma, for your insights. Floor is over to you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for making this not just another English teaching course, which is very traditional and boring sometimes, but making this very enthusiastic and engaging us, especially. So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dharani. And Aslam also sent his compliments. Thank you, Aslam. And a few more things to add now. Today being just introductory session, we just happen to do little bit of task. But when once the Moodle enrollment things are all sorted, we'll get you more and more involved with live tasks to be done and to be submitted to Moodle, so that they'll be auto-graded, assessed, or rather will be counted for your learner trajectory. So we'll be making it happen in future. Thank you, Pramoda, for your compliments as well. If anyone has got anything to say, it's time for you. In 1 minute's time, we can wind up, giving you 10 minutes in advance chance to, think of something productive than this nonsense.
Yes, thank you for doing this course actually, because though we do research in different fields, usually what we do is we pick up the writing task skills from the papers itself. But usually there is no time for our supervisors to teach us the breakdown of how to write a good paper. So this has been really helpful, and more than actually I thought that it would going to help. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Indula, for your genuine thoughts. What we are trying our best is not to teach you what you actually know. Actually, we are trying to support on the areas that you often slip from your priority list, so that you will not be missing those things when you are doing your great job of writing. Well, thank you. Thank you with that. And looking forward to see you all with spirits next day. On Thursday, you'll be having much more activities and much more interactivity with Miss Ashwini. With that, I should acknowledge that, all this content and slides are crafted by my pedagogical consultant, Ms. Ashwini Kamararatna, and she'll be meeting you on Thursday. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm and for your interactivity, because that makes me feel that I am teaching. Unless, if you happen to keep silent behind the screen, and if I happen to speak in front of the screen, it's going to make the whole thing awkward and odd. You didn't do it. Thank you very much for that. Thank you, everyone. And looking forward to see you with the same spirit Thursday. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
sir.
Thank you, sir. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.